Welcome to the Actionable ESG Talk series, brought to you by AKFI, the Actionable Knowledge Foundational Institute, the world's first nonprofit industry association committed to bridging the gap between ESG sustainability and digital transformation. Actionable ESG Talk series bring together great minds to discuss the current state and future state of ESG sustainability, artificial intelligence, and digital transformation. I'm delighted to be here with our guest, Ashish Chatterjee, who is a pioneering business strategist. Uh, he helps startups and small companies discover the uncharted territory where innovation grows and sustainability meets. By using AI tools, consumer behavioral insights, and deep sustainability experience, he enables businesses to scale profitably while meeting environmental and social commitments. At Innovate Green, Ashish guides companies through the complex landscape of sustainable business development, finding opportunities that others miss. His remarkable ability to make unobvious connections, a skill he honed during his leadership tenure at Procter and Gamble, allows him to develop innovative strategies that balance profit margins with purpose-driven initiative. And the word profit, it's something that many times it's avoided in sustainability. But moving on today, looking at the supply chain in particular, which is our central topic at the AKFI, how do you see the emerging sustainability trends reshaping supply chain practices across sourcing, manufacturing, and consumer engagement? And take a wide lens look at it, please.
Thank you, Manuel, for the opportunity to participate today. Um, I think I would start with the consumer engagement angle coming from Procter and Gamble. The consumer drives the bus in terms of CPG, which is my area of specialty. To me, there are two very important things that are going on in this space that concern us in supply chains. First is the consumer need for transparency. And that transparency means that they want products that have international eco-label certification, that prove that there is fair trade practice going on. And that is, I think, one of the core areas that people are looking for. In the same area, you are also looking at the purity of ingredients, the authenticity of claims, etc. So I think that's part of transparency. And in fact, improving transparency is a key to be able to generate more demand for sustainable products. Consumers are confused by the number of claims that are made, and it is more of a wordsmithing exercise, which it needs to evolve from to a more authentic, clear source of information for the consumer. The second part is that consumers want to get into sustainable products. They expect companies to be part of this transformation and provide them with sustainable products which are ethical and low impact. A good example of this comes from the Uniqlo blue denim. Blue denims are associated typically with very large usage of water. More than 3,000 liters per garment is what's reported, as well as harsh finishing practices using sandpaper, etc., manual labor. And Uniqlo has changed that significantly by being able to use a different process, which is ozone-based, that reduces water usage, that recycles the wastewater that comes in and being able to reuse it, and using a different laser-based process to be able to age those denims versus the conventional products. So that's important. And then the last part that I would say that drives consumer engagement is the advent of generative AI, which consumers are now turning to increasingly for recommending products. So instead of the traditional search, which has multiple outcomes, the generative AI engines are able to provide a single source of information. And that makes it imperative for us in the supply chain industry to be able to make sure that our best outcomes are on our brand websites. So those three would be the most important things for consumer engagement. And those drive the changes that we are going to talk about in manufacturing and in procurement. So, for instance, in procurement, we are going to talk about, um, we talked about transparency. So we are looking at ethical procurement, but then we are also looking at improving our supply chain to be more sustainable. A good example is the use of regenerative agriculture as we focus increasingly on agricultural-based raw materials. Regenerative agriculture um, is not only improving soil health and water, but it is really preparing the soil for future generations of productive crops. This has been implemented by companies like Nestle, General Mills, etc. And I think this is a way that we are going to go in the future. So that's the way you get to sustainable procurement. We talked about transparency and traceability. One of the important things that AI and blockchain has enabled us to do is to use these platforms like the IBM blockchain platform to help retailers verify the source of goods, um, verify to help consumers like us to be able to use farm to fork programs to know that the ingredients that they are consuming are indeed ethically sourced from the right farms. So, and then the manufacturing has a very important role as well. There is a lot of downtime that can be avoided, and that is being avoided by the switch to smart factories and digital technologies. And I think that is allowing us to minimize production downtime and energy usage. So all of this becomes extremely related to answer your question.
Absolutely. And I have the challenge to unpack so many very interesting threads. But as you were going through that, and as you started the presentation, actually, I was thinking, how can we make sustainability to rhyme with profitability? Because yes, we can do it through major investments in AI and medium-sized, large companies probably are better fit with their IT departments and their infrastructure to adopt new technologies. What about the smaller businesses? How can they reach this level of transparency, innovation that you mentioned, the example of the blue jeans company, and in the same time maintain their profitability, which is even more critical for smaller businesses that don't have a large, line of credits to support them.
I think that it's a very, very valid question. And I think that this is one of the most exciting developments that has happened in this time. The use of the use of IoT sensors, which are ubiquitous, they are cheap. That is enabling us to be able to connect communication across our entire value chain. So that is true for a small company and a large company. So you can, for example, you could source products from the farm using blockchain technology, using the IoT sensing, and be able to authenticate a supply chain and preserve the premiumness of your product that way. Um, I'll give you an example. There are two types of cotton that we typically use in industry. There is the conventional cotton and organic cotton. Conventional cotton is made with inorganic fertilizers, typically, and whereas organic cotton is made with organic fertilizers, which are manure and things like that. I think the important thing here is to be able to clearly differentiate. Okay, I know where my organic cotton comes from. And I know that it can be brought safely to my manufacturer and then to my consumer by using these technologies. This has become easier. We don't need an army of auditors to go do that. We can simply use the current technology to be able to do that. Why is that important? Because organic cotton is far more expensive than conventional cotton. So to preserve the sanctity of the value chain, these technologies allow every company a degree of scale that we never had before.
Are, if we look at the supply chain, as you go deeper and deeper in the supply chain, you usually find more and more small and medium businesses. How the large businesses, especially when we talked about the digital transformation, the artificial intelligence, the use of artificial intelligence, of blockchain, of IoT, how the large companies should and could help the smaller suppliers with know-how, with technology.
I think the deployment of these technologies at scale has become very much easier over the last couple of years. So large companies can easily talk to smaller companies about these technologies because they are not rocket science anymore. I focus a lot more on application of these technologies. So think about things that we are doing today, and can these technologies allow us to do these things better, more efficiently for all participants in the value chain? Can it reduce the amount of water I consume in growing a crop? Can I reduce the amount of fertilizers I use to grow that crop? Knowing that is critical from my standpoint as a farmer because I can reduce my input costs. As a larger manufacturer who is sourcing from my farm, it is important for me too because it is in my scope 3. So it is a win-win if we do it that way.
And if you talk about win-win, actually, as you're going through, I was sort of trying to compute the supply chain economics because in this tight relationship between supplier and their customers and going upstream and downstream, there is a propagation of the economics benefits, right? So in your example, if you save water in agriculture, that reflects in the end cost of the product, uh, allowing probably a price reduction, which propagates all the way through the supply chain to the manufacturer of blue jeans, right? Cotton users, and eventually being stabilizing or even reducing the cost to the consumer with sustainable products, which most of the time we think sustainable products should cost more, and they shouldn't.
I think that's a brilliant point. Bringing that out, I think it's very key, and it's up to companies that are in our consortium to be able to actually make that point to consumers. It not only reduces cost, it also helps the smaller manufacturers who are supplying to us in the larger company to be more productive, do more with their resources. And that is also a big part of making them viable and long-term sustainable.
Actually, again, a reflection on what you are saying, I can see the role of the CFO of a large company like Procter and Gamble becoming now a supply chain CFO, helping the finance throughout the whole supply chain, helping them to understand the profit and loss and how that can be readjusted, be a positive for sustainability, not a cost center, as we started the conversation today, right? Because many times sustainability is equal cost of compliance, and it is, and this is how it's accounted for in large companies.
I think that's a great point. Just to reinforce that point, if you look at the regenerative agriculture that I was talking about, the reasons we do regenerative agriculture is A, yes, long-term viability, but B, you are also minimizing inputs that can then transfer up through the food chain. So by eliminating, let's say, chemical inputs or harmful inputs to less harmful inputs, or
Right.
actually natural inputs like manure, fertilizer, etc., I think you are making a big difference to the consumer, and that's a difference that you can communicate in your product offering.
With your Procter and Gamble experience at P&G is considered the leader in not only in marketing but also in market research, in market strategies, in the whole theory of marketing. How do you see from that vantage point the sustainable go-to-market strategies, how they can enhance the brand perception? You mentioned actually through this thread, actually you mentioned a couple of examples already, but maybe let's bring them forward.
Yeah, I think getting sustainable strategies is all about conveying the product story, what it does, its superior performance, its value proposition in with the layer of sustainable performance added in. So to me, sustainability and that the way I have seen it practiced is really as a value driver. A consumer treats sustainability as a complementary product benefit, but not necessarily the sole benefit. They buy it primarily for for the reasons of performance, the job to be done. Now, how you can do the job and what benefits you bring to it, that's where I believe sustainability is a big enhancer, a big differentiator versus the old way of selling products in the business.
So marketing is not about bringing the prices up, it's bringing the functionality and the usability of the product up.
I, Absolutely. I think marketing is completely informed by consumer trends. If you look at the current trends of miniaturization, we are getting into swatches that we use for shampoo, for toilet cleaners, for laundry detergent, and these swatches dissolve in water. So instead of the older modes of transport, which were so bulky, generating generating so much of greenhouse gas because we are simply transporting water, we now have more sustainable forms. So that is something that marketing will be sensing and saying consumers want simplification. They want to be able to get on with their lives without getting into elaborate routines necessarily in terms of day-to-day care. And that's what's driving miniaturization. And in the process, you are helping the environment big time. You are helping the consumer feel good about herself when she or himself as they use this product. Um, and that, I believe, is the value that consumers are seeking, especially in this value-conscious world that we have evolved to in terms of in difficult economic conditions.
Absolutely, and not only pointing to the economic conditions, but the fact that we are also facing generational, cultural, and in general changes, behavioral changes, right? Gen Z comes into the forefront, and I've seen too many marketing studies which were saying, look, Gen Z can pay a little bit more. And actually, the economic reality, Gen Z needs to pay a little bit less. They are young. They have probably debt from their schools and education and so on. Many still live with their parents. There are not the there are the future engine, but the engine is still revving up, it's still starting. So thank you for linking together the marketing and the miniaturization of the transport, for instance, without really incurring any additional cost or hardship and giving this extra bonus of having a more sustainable product. So talking about the Gen Zers and the future generations, we encountered at AKFI many times people in the middle of the career changing. I see them also at Cornell as an instructor and facilitator. I see younger students joining us as interns and volunteers to learn about sustainability, and they want to make a career out of it. So with all your experience, many years of experience and wide and broad experience, uh, what future-proofing careers and strategic advice you may want to offer to those categories of people, those people changing their careers and young professionals just entering the job market?
I think having a fundamental understanding of sustainability through life cycle analysis is extremely important. No matter what the application you are going to pursue. If I'm going to pursue product development, I need to know what impact my potential product or my existing product has in different parts of the environmental cascade. I need to know what the trade-offs are. Are those acceptable trade-offs? Do consumers resonate with those trade-offs and say, you need to fix it? I think that as a product developer, having that understanding is extremely important. If I was a supply chain professional, for example, and I want to get deeper into sustainability, if I knew life cycle analysis, I would know that as the consumer preference moves towards plant-based products, I would then know that there is a potential trade-off with land use, a potential trade-off with more use of inorganic fertilizers that could leach into waterways. Um, Understanding that would then allow me to talk to suppliers and determine which supplier I would like to pick. Do they understand it the same way? Do they have a program, whether themselves or in affiliation with a university um, or end users? Do they have a program to be able to mitigate those trade-offs? It's a long game. It takes time. But knowing where the DNA is, which is the LCA, I think is an invaluable starting point. And if I had to make only one recommendation, that is the recommendation I would make.
Well, it's a great recommendation, and in the same time, I would pose the challenge because the education usually it's vertical, right? We specialize and super specialize, and you projected a very horizontal factor, which is sustainability, which goes to the whole life cycle, as you mentioned. So very few people take the time to understand the life cycle because, as you said, it has to traverse different domains of knowledge, right? People know maybe working in fabric industry do not know too much about agriculture and how the agriculture can be optimized and made more sustainable. So Thank you. It's one very strong recommendation. Know the life cycle, learn the life cycle, be open to questions because you will be surrounded by people that have the knowledge and not always comes from the university. It comes from praxis, from practices.
Exactly.
Well, thank you. It's an amazing discussion, and Ashish, I would like to thank you for taking the time to visit with us today. And for our audience, please make sure to tune in every week for a new episode of AKFI Actionable ESG Talk series. You'll gain new perspectives on how to mitigate risks and create value by integrating ESG and digital transformation. And today we just had a great example on how this program works, and we'll continue to provide a place for people like Ashish to join us. Thank you again.
Thank you.